Welcome to Flying Chariots the Rise podcast with your hosts, Dustin and Chrissy. And I'm not just smiling because I get to see Dustin. We are talking about serial killers tonight. And there's nothing I love more than delving into the psyche of a serial killer. Also, this is our intro into true crime. So, Dustin and we're going to start getting into that type of stuff. People love it. We love it. We share a passion for it. So, we're going to start doing that type of stuff. So, serial killers. When you're a child, you're afraid of monsters, right? And then when you get a little older, you meet a couple of narcissists or you watch the news and you realize that the true monsters are people and they are hidden and they have masks. And the things they hold the closest to them are ugly, ugly secrets. And that's part of what makes serial killers so fascinating. Um, of course, most serial killers are diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, which is high aggression, low empathy. And so these people, they don't give a flying fuck about you or your needs. They're all about themselves, high on the manipulation as well. So you see a lot of that. So my favorite serial killer is Dahmer. Who's your favorite serial killer?
Oh man, I was gonna say Dahmer, but guess what? Come close to second is Gacy, the killer clown from Chicago.
What do you love so much about Gacy?
Well, the fact that, well, again, he's very mysterious in a sense because the fact that he brings out a different persona out for his killer ways, and the clown was kind of another opener to that evil side. And yeah, again, he had this weird psychological craziness too, where like again, I think he was brought up by alcoholics and just was very kind of confused with his sexuality at the time, as was Dahmer, like that's I think that's another one that they can kind of correlate with it, kind of their
True.
messed up childhood and during puberty and what they liked and stuff. But no, very interesting with Gacy. He kind of made a name for himself too, like in town. I think he ran for
Oh, people
mayor.
loved him. He was a general contractor.
Yeah,
And he was very beloved. People thought he was a great guy.
yeah, and yeah, he like host house parties. He had grill outs, and
Mm-hmm.
he get involved with just the neighborhood, and yeah, I don't know what went wrong. Where I guess he did have like a wife and kids, right?
He did. She
And
divorced him, obviously, after
mhm,
some accusations, but he did. He had a wife and kids. He held up his image as a family man. Now, you meet enough people in life, and you learn that a lot of people do have these masks. So mainly, what you see out in the open are narcissists holding up these masks of "I'm a great
yes,
guy" or "I'm a great girl," and very charismatic. These people can be very charismatic, Dustin. You can see that in Gacy. You can absolutely see it in Ted Bundy.
oh yeah,
Charisma makes people like you.
yeah.
People love charismatic people. Um, John Wayne Gacy, unfortunately, fuck that dude. He was a piece of shit. I hate him so much, Dustin. I think in our first podcast, I talked about how his last words were "kiss my ass"
Yes.
because he
Ooh.
was enraged. There he is.
Kiss my double chinned face.
There he is. And he was a
Yes,
clown on the weekends, I guess.
he
Um,
was.
and look at this. So the way he draws his clown face, isn't he doesn't even look like a friendly clown.
No, he doesn't. It's really eerie. And it almost kind of like the Joker, like the newest Joker that you see.
Oh,
It's kind of like,
very
whoa, where
much
did they get that
so.
idea from?
Right,
You
because
know
don't
what?
they usually draw on a smile or something? It looks like bat wings, or he looks like an
And
evil
his
clown
even
for
like his
sure.
costume is really like look at his grandmother's clothing or something.
It
He just patched it
does.
together.
Oh. He doesn't look well, no one really likes clowns, but I'm assuming Gacy's the reason why no one likes clowns anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe kids used to like clowns in like the 40s. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's very weird. And again, I think that was the way of like reaching out to kids where his sexual fantasies were, you know what I'm saying? Where like a lot of these kids were young. And then I thought it was amazing that this dude was dumping these bodies in these like crawl spaces in his basement
Oh my
with his family
God.
right there and then. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like,
yeah, yeah. So
and
like he must have not had neighbors that were close because that smell must have been just
well,
repulsive.
that's when the cops were like, uh, let me step back a little bit further. I think he did get arrested once for
Oh
touching and
yes.
molesting a boy, and he was
Yes.
in prison for a little while. And he was known to be like the chef, and he actually made the news and stuff like that. But no, again, he was out. The police were kind of always watching him from a distance. They always kind of had like a suspicious uh something is not right about this dude. But again, they couldn't like pinpoint where all these people were missing and shit, and there ended
You
up being
know,
cross spaces in this.
it pisses me off so much because there were several boys who came forward and said this guy molested.
Yes,
And
yes, that's
then
right.
they, because he was so beloved in the community, they're like,
Yes,
ah, nah. You know, they didn't take it seriously, and that could have saved a lot of people's lives. The same thing happened with Dahmer, obviously, where this
yes.
friggin'
Oh my god,
zombified
the cops
man.
fucked up on that one.
Oh, they fucked up real bad. I think they all got fired after that.
There's some of the victims of Gacy's here.
Oh my God. He killed what, 31 people? 30? And then
Yeah,
look at how young.
oh so young.
They were so young.
And then the fact that they're still identifying bodies that they're asking for people today, like still to
Yeah,
identify some of these bodies that they just don't know who they belong to. And then
right.
he, after his cross space was getting way too full, he was dumping bodies over a bridge, and they were finding bodies where he said he was dumping some of them.
He was a piece of shit. He was probably the most evil, I would say, the most lacking empathy. Because like the cops, like you said, they were watching him. They were onto him.
Yeah,
And he was just enraged and annoyed that they were killing.
yeah, he was.
Like he didn't try to like hide it much. He was just like he had this sense of entitlement was insane.
I think Dahmer, in the sense, had the same demigod thing too, is
Yeah.
where he had his all these close calls of getting caught red-handed, where he kind of would have been like, "Okay, yeah, I did," you know,
Yeah.
it's like because that's what he basically did, anyways, at the end.
Yeah.
No, you're right. He was just in a drunken spew. Um, it's just really weird again how awesome of a killer he was, but then again, it was very sloppy and he could have got it caught. Again, luck was on his side. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yes.
Especially when you have multiple cop visits and that place must have been smelling like crazy shit. And some of
It's
these victims were just straight up laying on the ground when they were walking around. Like, it just didn't happen to look over the bed. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like, what the
It's
fuck?
it's not just luck though. There's something to be said for the way you present yourself. Like you can get away with some really crazy stuff if you just act like you're doing nothing wrong. And there's Dahmer,
Yeah.
my favorite serial killer. And it's not that I don't think he's a deplorable person because I do. He's deplorable. They're all deplorable. But what I love so much about Dahmer is I love that freaking interview because he was so honest and open. Like
Yes.
all out of all the serial killers, and I've watched all
Yes.
the interviews. Ted Bundy, hours before his death, he had an interview that was pretty good, but not great. Like in terms of honesty and being like open about why you did what you did. Ted Bundy kind of took the pornography way out, like, oh, you're right, it was the porn, poor
Mm-hmm.
me. You know, Dahmer is like straight up, it's not porn, it's not my parents. I had obsession and compulsion to do this. It got out of control. The person you're looking at that's responsible is me. And here's what I did. I saw these people as objects
Mm-hmm.
and I like basically, it got so out of control I did this to their bodies. I did this to their livers. I kept their skulls. Like he was very open.
Yes. And he was, yeah, again with the gratification of the sex and different stages of mutilation. It was like he would like take pictures of different stages of him taking part of a body, and he would masturbate to those pictures. And he would
Yes.
have a head in his fridge that he would masturbate to, and he would take it to his, he would take it to work with him in a
Yeah.
fucking box in his locker. Like
Yeah.
how gutsy,
Very gutsy.
very
Very gutsy.
gutsy.
But he
And
wanted to
then
keep them with him.
yeah, and then he wanted to make a shrine with
Did he had a
skulls
shrine?
and yeah, again, I was fortunate enough to be at the film festival in Madison, and it was about, man, I would have to say 9 years ago, and they had a independent film about Jeffrey Dahmer, and they actually had the detective that broke the case and his next door neighbor at the film festival that
Oh my
met everybody
God.
and talked to people that wanted to ask questions and stuff. So I got to shake the detective's hand and stuff like that. And
Oh my
it was really cool.
God.
I was like,
What?
damn. And like her neighbor, his neighbor was right across the hall. Sometimes she would
Yeah.
like interact with them and stuff like that. And she said she's always smelled something funky coming out through the vents and stuff like that.
You can't
Uh,
hide the smell of death. It's
no, my
very
God.
pungent, very distinctive. There's
Yeah.
no hiding the smell of death, man. Once you know it. I mean, I worked at an animal hospital and we kept the bodies in a freezer and we would move the bodies into a freezer. And the once you know that smell, still going back, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, I don't know how anyone could think it's anything other than that, but he was like, "Oh no, I'm rotting meat. I just got a lot of meat in my." Um,
Very,
Dom,
very weird.
listen, Dahmer had trouble with intimacy, and part of the
Hmm.
reasons why I say sometimes I feel bad for him
Hmm.
is because, like we were talking about before the show, now a lot of people have outlets, sexual outlets for these sexual fetishes, these paraphilias that people have. Necrophilia is a tough one. Most of the time, people have to become like work at a cemetery or something to fulfill that, or
Yeah,
morgue,
right.
to fulfill that. But even most people with necrophilia, they don't usually commit violent crimes to fulfill that need.
Sure.
Usually, you're just sneaking into already deceased people and doing your thing. So, but yeah, he certainly had necrophilia. Um, oh, Kemper, didn't Kemper,
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna
didn't
say
he?
he's got some like correlations with Dahmer too, with like necrophiliac and chopping heads off of girls and masturbating to their heads and stuff like that.
I
And the fact
think,
that I liked Kemper's story, that's even I think a little bit more
oh
sad.
God,
Even
no,
more sad.
there was something weird going on with the mom. Like, didn't he fuck her skull? Didn't
Yes. Well, that's
his
kind of
skull?
again, this guy could have had a killing spree as long as he was killing college girls in California.
Yeah.
And his mother was working at the college at the time too. But even before all this, he killed his grandparents when he was like 15 years old. And he was
Uh,
like in juvenile detention or prison or what the fuck it was. But then he got out. And then he was living with his mother, where his mother was just an alcoholic weird fuck and was like just making him feel like shit for like being a murderer and being a weird
yes, his
fuck.
mom was really on him.
So
Yeah.
all these women he was killing was kind of like the envisions of his mother
Visioning his
until
mother.
basically
Yes.
just to get over the pain or whatever the fuck it was. But then he just realized that it was his mother that he needed to kill to have
Yep, right.
all the other killings to stop. Like that's what it
Right.
was. And this guy turned himself in at the end after killing his mother.
Yeah.
But he did her like the
He
most
did her dirty.
crazy. Yeah,
Yikes.
he fucking like ripped her vocal cords out and threw it in the garbage disposal and then like
He
took her
disrespected
head
her
off
corpse.
and yeah, he just embarrassed her course by fucking her. Uh
Yep.
he went into great detail on how he did that. And then he
Yeah.
took her head and threw darts at it.
Yeah,
like sitting there throwing
wow.
darts
I
at
mean,
it.
that is rage like I've never known it, man. And a lot of these people that it's the same story. My father was an alcoholic, or my mother was an overbearing mother is a common theme you'll see with serial killers.
Yes.
Alcoholic parents, parents with like depression or kind of to a state where they're completely ignored and isolated and left alone, particularly in sensitive time period where your sexuality is budding.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of that theme with serial killers, with the paraphilias. And yeah, he's another really interesting one. I think there's problems with intimacy.
Hmm.
From what
Yeah,
I
it
gather,
was.
there are
Hmm.
a lot of problems with intimacy. And like I think Rachel Hoffman posted something once about like sex dolls. And I was like, the psychology behind someone who prefers a sex doll to having sex with a human is
Sure.
very similar to someone like Dahmer, who didn't want someone to leave to the point where he would murder them to keep them, or he would eat their body to keep them with him, or
Right.
keep their skulls to keep them from leaving because you fear someone leaving you. It's intimacy problems, a lot of it.
Sure. And then a lot, and this guy is not obviously a serial killer. He only killed two people, but he is,
Theme.
yes. And he's, but no, the fact that he had issues with his mother, this,
Mother.
and then this being alone too, because once she
Yes.
left, he just had like a mental breakdown
He
where
went
everything,
wild.
he just
Yeah.
went wild. He like made her room a shrine, and this the whole house kind of was like hoarded with
He,
yeah, he would go grave robbing, and he would like look in the fresh obituary, like in the obituaries, and see which ones are the fresh corpses. And sometimes he'd be out there in wintertime, believe it or not, like
yeah.
this little
Yeah.
skinny ass dude
I know. I guess he was a
out
little
there.
guy. He was a little guy, right? I heard
Yeah,
he was
he's
tiny.
tiny.
Yeah.
And then they just actually released recently. There's a documentary that just came out with his voice recordings that they just released, like
Oh,
that they
really?
found. Yeah, he's just got the like the most, he's really simple, plain, really soft. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
God.
It's
Um,
interesting. They described
yeah,
him as being a helpful guy, worked
he
on, I
was.
think,
Yeah,
like
he
a
would
farm or
babysit kids and
something.
shit. Hmm.
Yeah, but he was simple. They described him as being simple.
Yeah, a little odd,
Um,
but other than that, yeah, again, he was not a killer, but the grave robbing and his creative creations with the lampshades to the skull suples to nipple belts. And then he had a full woman bodysuit that he sewed together with a mask, and he would prance around on a full moon night, acting like his mother.
yeah,
No, straight up.
the
But it's
psychology on this
psychologically
one's
there, right?
interesting, and it's hard to pinpoint, but it's obviously it has to do with his mother and trying to bring his mother back in some way.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the grave robbing as well. I think he was trying to like didn't he try to like bring
he
his mom
tried
back?
to he tried to go get his mother, but there's a
Yeah.
new technique of concrete being poured in there. So like
Oh.
when he gets down there, he's like, "Oh fuck,
Oh.
damn it, mom!" But again, like I can imagine, like she'd be sitting up in her room where it's like pristine, where the whole house is just being rotted away and hoarded and shit with other
God.
macabre objects. But yeah, like when he finally got busted, I think it was someone went to his house because I think they found a receipt at the hardware store where the woman was missing. I think that was
Yes.
last kills. And then I found her body hanging like a deer, being all look gutted like
Yeah.
a deer.
It was hunting season, interestingly enough.
Yeah, right.
And he went in there and he just shot the lady, right? He had a crush
Yeah,
on her or something.
he might have.
Yeah.
But then again, he was very struggled with his sexual needs and fantasies, and I think he was again just very odd.
There's
And
some
yeah,
weird sexual thing with his mom. I heard rumors that it
oh,
might have been a sexual
he
thing.
again he was just. so in love with her, and like
Yeah.
she was nothing like the world to her. I think when like at the funeral of hers, he cried like a baby and wailed and like uncontrollably,
Yes.
very
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I heard like a baby, they said, or like a young child.
right.
Like he was mentally very young.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
there's going to
Just
be a Netflix, I think, documentary on him or something coming up. I think it's called Monster.
oh,
I'm
oh,
excited for it.
cool.
The one on Dahmer was amazing. Did you watch
Yeah,
that?
was it? Yeah, yeah, that
Oh
was
my God,
crazy.
it's so good.
They couldn't have picked a better actor. That was
I
dope.
know. He did an amazing job. I think
Snapped.
the mannerisms, or I guess you could say
Yeah.
lack of, because Dahmer had such a flat affect, but
Hmm.
it was so good.
No, it was. It was they did their homework on that one.
Oh, they did. You know,
Yeah.
part of what I've noticed is isolation at a young age tends to be common between all of these serial killers, isolation
Hmm.
and um, just being like they are always described as shy and withdrawn,
Hmm.
which is interesting. I know with Dahmer, he got to a point where he was frequenting gay bars and
Hmm.
um,
The gay bathhouses.
yes, the
So
bathhouses.
another thing too, like again, back where I think he didn't really want to kill these people in a sense. That's another thing about Dahmer is kind of
Yes,
weird. Like
yes,
as much as weird as it was, he didn't really want to hurt them. He wanted to make didn't want to be with them. So he drugged these
exactly.
people in the bathhouses
Oh my
just
God.
to lay there to rest his head on their chest to hear their
Yes.
heartbeat and
Okay.
just to caress them and have his own power over them. But then yeah, he got kicked
Exactly.
out of the bath houses for all that shit. But again, you're totally right about if Dahmer was here in the modern day world and with technology and the dark web, there is people that have fantasies of being eaten
Precisely.
alive and or having sex and then eaten alive. Because there was a case in Germany. I don't know if did Dana tell you this
Yeah,
story?
yeah. I
Yeah.
love this story though. This is
That one's pretty gnarly. But yeah, this guy found this guy on the internet, and this guy wanted his fantasy that get this weird fucker that wants to be eaten or ha, have sex, then get eaten alive, and then die basically. And then this guy's like, "This is right up my alley. I want to do this." So yeah, he invites this guy over, but he sets up about I don't know 5 video cameras all around the house. So he wanted to film every goddamn last second of this, to the sex, to the eating of this dude's penis. They both they chopped this dude's penis and they sat there and tried to eat it, both of them, until the other guy went into shock because he was losing so much blood. And so he takes the dude into the bathroom and slits his throat and hangs him upside down and drains his blood and then starts
yes.
hacking off his meat and saving it because he was eating them. But again,
Consensual. That
filming
was a
it, the
consensual
filming it
act.
part. So this
And
guy is gonna like,
no,
I'm gonna watch this later on
oh, for sure. That's
over
gonna be the only
over
thing that dude's
again.
jerking off to for the rest of his life. You
Yeah,
know? And like you said, on the dark web, you can meet up and it's BDSM is fairly mainstream now. I don't know if it was in the 70s or whatever. I think, in my opinion, that is actually part of why we're seeing less serial killers now, is
sure.
because you have connections now where if you're into domination and that's your sexual fetish, you can find someone who wants to be dominated. You don't have to go kill someone.
No,
And I've heard people say, no, no, they want to hurt people, and the safe word, it turns them off and all this. But I mean, you can meet your needs without hurting people, or
yeah.
having to murder someone.
There's a TV show that me and my sister watched last night. She introduced it to me. It's called it's Florida Man. Like the
Yeah.
county. You heard of this? You ever heard of this show?
No.
It's on Netflix. It's so the first episode was this like guy was just dying to make money somehow. He'd just like do anything. So he just went on the Craigslist and it said, I'll do anything for money, but within reason.
Yeah.
So he gets all these weird requests, and most of them are sexual
Yeah.
until he comes across this one guy. He's like, I'll pay you, I don't know, it was like $4,000 to chop off a few of my toes and then cook them in front of me and eat them in front of me.
Wow.
and I'll pay you for it. So
Wow.
this guy, I don't know, he needed that money. I don't know why, like when you suck a dick or something. I don't know. Like, all right. So this guy goes to this dude's house and he thinks it's gonna be some like loony, crazy fucking guy. And
Yeah.
this dude's rich as shit, and he like comes across like a doctor and shit, like
Wow.
totally like wouldn't think this guy would be into
Yeah.
something like crazy. And then sure enough, this guy like sets up on the floor like antibiotics and like gets like a kitchen knife and like
Oh
just like
my God.
gets like the everything ready for what's gonna like, go down,
Yeah.
right? And this guy is like, he's gonna have a countdown and shit. But he had like a witness too. He brought this girl with him. I don't know who he find to like come and witness this with them.
Right.
And they filmed this too. So they're and taking pictures. And like this guy on three, he's like, no, no, no. He like the guy like chickens out
Yeah.
the first time. He's like, you know what? I teach karate and my students are gonna notice like my toes missing. And
Yes.
it's like, oh,
Something
come
to
on. So
consider.
he's like, yeah. And then like then they somehow try to convince the guy again, and he gets down on the ground again. And he's just ready to go. And then another excuse goes, like, what the fuck? And it's like, I need this fucking money. And like, blah, blah, blah. He's getting pissed off and shit. And I guess the guy is like, fuck it. I can't do it right now. But there's a fascination. I think they were talking to a dominatrix that like I think there's a blade against the foot or like the temptation about it could be chopped off
Yeah.
is another
Yeah.
sexual high in a sense.
Yeah.
And maybe he did want it chopped off to get the full release. Who knows? Like, but again, this guy chickened out at the end of it, paid the guy anyways
Oh,
for
you
his
still paid him.
troubles,
Okay.
still paid him for his troubles, and like kept in contact with him just in case he decides one day he wants to go through it at all.
Honestly, he
Like,
might have just gotten off
whoa.
on like getting that close to losing a finger, like
But again, you're having some dude eat your toes in front of you.
it's not for
It's
me, but I love that people can consensually get together and do this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Without
that's true.
hurting each. I mean, I guess if you're losing a finger, you're hurting, but you want it, so it's consensual.
It's consensual. Yeah. It's
Like,
like the people
consensual
who, yeah,
matter.
it's like the people who are extreme body modificators who like to remove a healthy finger,
Yes.
just because
Yeah.
well, there's a body, a identification disorder where you feel
Yeah.
like this arm is not supposed to be there and it's got to be
Oh,
chopped off right
interesting.
at this one
Yeah.
certain spot. If I can't be do more, I can't be do less.
Yeah.
It's like, and people go to the extremes because a doctor won't do that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
maybe a quack, but
Yeah. You got to go to a
no,
really
like
weird doctor for that.
no, like people go extremes and like will chop it off themselves or have someone else do it or have someone run over their arm. You know what I'm saying? They're extreme shit. But no, you're right. There is these people, and it could be some kind of um dysfunction. Who knows? Like I don't know how.
It's considered a sexual dysfunction, but at the same time, in the 70s, now being openly gay is not something people even think about. In
Sure.
the 70s, it was a little more risque. You had to
Yeah.
sneak to bathhouses, kind of do sometimes these guys had wives and they were trying to hide it
Yep. Yep.
and different, you don't have to hide it as much anymore. So even with Dahmer's sexuality of being gay, he was still somewhat ashamed of that even. So, and I think about the 70s versus now, and you have all these resources for finding your people and finding, there's plenty of gay websites for finding a date. He all
Yeah.
he wanted, all he wanted was like, and he's sure he had dysfunction, but he wanted a man to stay with him. And once the guy said, "Oh, I got to get up to go to work," he was like, "All right, you're dying then."
Yeah.
And I'm gonna like keep your skull with me forever. It was really sad. There's something sad about it.
Yeah. And then well, again, there's not too much torture with Dahmer. I think maybe Gacy might have tortured, and
Gacy
Ted
was
Bundy
big into
might. I think,
torture.
and Ted Bundy's a torturer. Um, yeah, I mean, think of some of these cartel motherfuckers, man. I've seen some
Oh
videos
my
where they like
God.
chop off dudes' limbs and then slap his own face with his fucking arms
Oh,
and shit. Like,
oh
talk about
God.
psychologically fuckery right there,
You
dude.
know,
Some shit.
Ted Bundy, yes, Gacy would like trick them into handcuffing themselves. And then he had this
Yes.
noose that his like homemade noose or whatever, and he would tighten and tighten. And he said he got so good at knowing exactly how much to tighten before they passed out and everything.
Hmm.
He was big into torture. And again, I think he's the
He
most
was into
evil.
biting too. He'd leave his bite
Yeah,
mark on everybody.
yeah, he was a sick fuck, and he was a cocky fuck. Him and oh, so
Another,
Dahmer.
sorry.
Oh, what'd you say?
I was gonna say with Ted Bundy was really weird that he got
Yes.
famous for like being a killer. And like he even got married to a woman that was just like idolizing his
So
craziness, right? And people have
Bundy,
done that. And there's tons of people like that too. Like Dahmer got fans too. Like what the fuck?
Ramirez got fans. He got a woman to marry him in
Yes.
jail.
Yes. The
He
this Night Stalker. That was his
the Night Stalker.
yeah.
So he reminds me of Ted Bundy a little bit. They're all different in their own way. Like for instance, Son of Sam.
Yes.
He was clearly paranoid schizophrenic.
Oh, and that was a cult too.
So Son of Sam. Oh, was that also? Was there like a cult that formed out of that or something? Really?
Yeah. Well, not it was like a Satanist cult that was part of like Son of Sam. Like one of the guys were there was multiple killers. There was like um yeah, there's yeah, that guy because I think that guy thought this neighbor's dog was talking to him
Yes,
about
yeah,
killing
the
people.
neighbor. It was like a German
Yeah,
Shepherd.
yeah.
He, of course, that's clear paranoid schizophrenia. Even he used to write to the cops, and he does this word salad thing where his writing doesn't completely make sense. They like rearrange words in weird ways. He was
Hmm.
clearly paranoid schizophrenic.
Yeah.
They've done interviews with him like somewhat recently because he's like an hour away from me. He's in, I think, Shawangunk.
Okay.
You guys have Dahmer and Gein. We have Son of Sam over here in New York to claim for.
Yes,
Yeah, so he's still alive to my knowledge, and he's only like an hour away from me in Shawangunk. Thanks. So they've done recent interviews
uh-huh.
with him because he was in Queens when he was doing all these murders. And honestly, he seems like just a normal guy. It's the weirdest thing
Hmm.
when he's talking now. He must be on really good meds. He
Yeah, right.
he was a schizophrenic. He's a little different than
He
the rest of
does.
them because you know how they all try to claim insanity?
Hmm.
And it's like, nah, personality disorder, yes, not insanity. Son of Sam was clearly paranoid schizophrenic. And that's why I say paranoid schizophrenia, in my opinion, is the most dangerous of the mental health disorders. Because I don't know what you're thinking. If you're paranoid schizophrenic, you could be thinking that I'm trying to kill you, and then you're defending yourself against me. And
Hmm.
then I'm dead the next thing I know.
Yeah.
Like that's dangerous.
And there was, I think, when Kempler was killing too, I think there was another serial killer in the neighborhood or in the same state at the same time where I think a lot of they just couldn't like match up with some of these murders too. Or again, where these people are
Yeah.
just like so confused or like, what the fuck is going on? Um, yeah, no, it's crazy. I was gonna go off of
Kemper was
oh
crazy.
no, I was gonna talk about um Fish. Albert Fish. You know this guy?
Fish, I'm not super familiar with that guy. Tell me more.
Oh man, this guy is a Satanist. Um, and he
So
was
was Ramirez. I
cannibalism.
think Ramirez was a
Yeah, Satanist and cannibalist, and he went after children. And this is an old dude, and he had the weirdest sexual fantasies. When he like got married, he actually had kids too, like throughout his past. But he
few
was
of them
killing
too.
kids, and this guy was getting away with murder because this stuff was happening in the 30s and 40s and shit. You know, like
Right.
the
Okay. So this,
forensic science is happening. So like he's just
yeah,
throwing, but he
you
was
get away
like
with anything back then.
right. So when he was kidnapping kids, he would go to these abandoned houses, he'd get naked and like torture them, have sex with them, then kill them, then eat them. But then, like the most fucked up thing is he would contact the families with letters and talk about their
Oh,
last like
oh,
the
Jesus.
last moments with him, and like what he did to them, and like how their ass tasted and shit, and like Oh my God. Crazy fucked up shit. So when they
Horrible.
finally caught this guy, he claimed to well he kind of told the story like, yeah, he's just saying this and he loves pain so much so that he injects needles in his pelvis and ass cheeks and his dick, and they didn't believe him, and they had him x-rayed. His whole pelvis is just full of long
What?
ass needles and nails and shit that he
Ah,
just inserted. So every time he sat down, he was in pain, but he loved it. That's just like that's his kick.
wow.
Yeah. So like receiving and giving pain was like his lust.
That is wild.
So
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's pain or giving pain that turns them on. You know, with someone like Ted Bundy, and I love his last interview. You know, he's had a few really good interviews, but his final interview happened right before they put him to death.
mm,
And he seemed a little sad, but let's be honest, he wasn't sad because of any of the women he killed. He was sad because he was losing his life. He only cares about himself. It's quite obvious.
mhm.
They say that Ted Bundy was quite intelligent.
Oh, he
I
was.
don't know. You know what, though? So, what is intelligence? Because let's be real, any idiot can get a degree. Okay. Intelligence to its core is adaptability, or how
Mhm.
much you can see around you, or how much you can manipulate your environment around you. That's intelligence to its
Being
core,
a con person.
being a con person. And that is actually why, yeah, I would say a decent amount of serial killers are pretty smart, but it's because of how they can manipulate the people, how easily they can read the room around them and
Mhm.
manipulate the world around them, to get people wrapped around their fingers.
Yeah. And we can like talk about like ancient serial killers. I think about like Vlad the Impaler. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, going way
That
back, huh?
you know what I'm saying? Going way back. That motherfucker was murdering motherfuckers and sticking them on big ass poles and shit and eating them.
Yeah, the life was so brutal back there then,
Oh,
like in
wasn't
the
it?
Middle Ages and stuff,
Who
when
the
they
hell
used to
was
do
working with this
fucked
guy?
up
Like,
shit
I could.
and no one cares. They're like, yep, that's what we do here. Put
Well,
people
then
on
we
sticks.
well we can go a little bit more modern. Like the Jack the Ripper was one of the most famous.
Yeah. Okay, that was
You
London,
know,
right?
yes, and the fact that he was almost like poetic in his killings. You know, what I'm saying this is the trash and filth that he thought it was. You know, these women.
Yes.
You know, with the prostitution and each one got worse and worse. But then he had all these like poetic messages that he leave behind for the cops to again. He got away,
You
and
know what? The poetic messages is so common because a lot of these people are narcissists and they want the news to
oh
cover
yeah,
them and they
they
want the
do.
stories and they want to be known. I mean, the Zodiac killer is a perfect example of a total dick who was like taunting the cops, like with their coding, and they thought they were so much smarter than everyone else. And they're like, guess what I'm gonna do next? I'm gonna shoot up a bunch like a school bus or whatever. You know, they total dick. They never caught the guy, right? Or they had some theories and
They have theories, and I think there's like modern blood tests they found and stuff like that. I have no idea. I kind of like to think let's keep it like a mystery because it's just so
yeah,
it came across with so many stories and movies just brought
yeah,
up for that movie or from that legend and well not much of a legend but it happened but again like it came more myth than man. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying because no one knew how it happened who it was or they have
true.
theories and stuff like that. um we here in Wisconsin there's another modern day again you don't hear the cool names anymore but this guy had a cool name well not really cool but his name was the Baraboo Bone Breaker and his fantasy was to kidnap people and tie them up to a bed and take a baseball bat and like break
Oh,
all their bones and make them look like pretzels and shit.
God.
Like fucking a. And then he would kill them. But he get the
Yeah.
satisfaction of hearing the bones break. I don't know if it was a sexual
So
release
that's
or
another
gratification.
pain being turned on by pain.
Man, right.
So that's interesting. You know, with Ted Bundy, he was turned on by violence intermingled with sex.
Hmm.
You can see in one of his interviews, it's a very eerie moment, okay? And I love these interviews with the serial killers. There's a moment where they say, "Have you ever hurt anyone?" And this was when he was maintaining his innocence. And he had a creepy smile on his face, and he was like, "Not in the way that you mean it." And in my mind, I was thinking, this guy thinks that these unconsensual, non-consensual interactions with these women, where he's committing violence on them sexually, is a sexual act, a consensual sexual act. Like, I think in his head, he believed, no, I was just having fun with these women, you know? Like, it was the way he said it. It's really eerie if you watch it.
Oh, I might have to watch it again.
It's really eerie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ted Bundy, he in his last interview, I
Okay.
think it was like a reverend or someone, like doctor, I can't remember his name. It was a reverend or someone who was trying to get him to admit that violent pornography was the cause of all of this.
Mm,
And he kind of copped out, in my opinion, a little in his last interview, which was hours before his death.
hmm.
And he was pretty much saying, you know what? Yeah, it's the violent porn, and it escalated and escalated, and then porn wasn't enough. And then I had to act out. But I'm sorry, we've all seen some form of violent porn or BDSM, and I'm not going around, stabbing guys and jerking off on them.
No. And again, it's the way we're brought up too, in a sense. And
Well,
and some people are, I guess, I don't know if Ed or Ted Bundy had a crazy upbringing or not. It seemed like
no,
he had siblings
he
and he was loved.
he maintained till the very end. He said, I had a beautiful household. It wasn't like the Brady Bunch or whatever, but whatever he said, but he was like, it was fine.
Right.
And he said there was no alcoholism, there was no abuse. We grew up in a Christian home.
Hmm. Again, it's just maybe one of his, just happened to be a fantasy, and that just went out of control. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
that, like
I mean,
Jeffrey Dahmer.
that's another thing about modern day society, though. If you're into dominating, like Dahmer was into complete control, he wanted
Hmm.
complete control. That's why he tried to zombify a guy, right?
Hmm.
So you can find someone who's willing to submit to you these days. And like that's a relationship that you can consensually have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like these days that's part of why we're seeing less
Yeah.
serial. Just a theory of mine.
No, I think you're totally right. The fact that there's different avenues to find people willingly to do this, for your own gratification and their gratification, obviously.
Yeah,
Twisted enough.
exactly. There's
Um,
both ways. Both people, get something out of it, and it can be consensual. And in the 70s, when Dahmer was committing all these acts, he would see a guy, he would say, I don't know how to be intimate with this
mhm.
person. I don't know. I've never developed the skills of intimacy. And I just want to keep this guy with me. I'm so sexually attracted to him. But how do I know how to do that other than just like killing him and then like
Use your words. But again, he might have been a social read. I don't know. Again, like people liked him. Like
yeah.
he was a
Well,
playboy at the clubs. Like the boys liked
he
him.
was a
Like
6 foot tall. He kept himself in good shape. Like
yeah.
people thought he was handsome. A little weird, but
Mhm. And then I think too is he got the where it's like a race thing because a lot of his victims were black. He just happened to like black men too.
that's
It's
my
just,
opinion as
and
well.
it's just like
That's
he
my
he killed
opinion.
a white dude, he killed an Asian dude, he
Yeah.
killed
To be
all
honest, his first victim was a white
he killed
male.
two white dudes. Yeah.
He did. And to be honest with you, and he was so honest in that interview. Why would he lie? Like, I genuinely think he was just aroused by darker skinned males. We all have types.
Hmm.
Some people like redheads, some people like tall, some people like short. I think he was genuinely just aroused by African American males. I think he would have probably been honest if there were anything else because he was so fucking honest in that interview about
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Again, he'd probably be still alive today, and because there's that one guy in prison. I think he called himself God or Jesus or some shit.
Yeah, yeah.
That they took a part of a barbell at the gym and took it apart and went over to Dahmer and beat him
Oh
over the
my
head with it,
God.
with another inmate too. I think another inmate got
Yes.
killed during the whole
Yes.
struggle.
Well, obviously there was a
And then
lot of outrage.
then he put that shit back, and then I guess the detectives had a hard time figuring out how it happened. You know,
Oh
like
my,
like what? But
yeah.
you
So
know, with Dahmer again, I think it was an elephant lifting off his chest every time he had an interview talking about
yeah,
the case. And then like he went as far as having the priest at the prison baptize him,
yeah,
get him ready. You know, he was focusing on his faith at the end of his
he
life.
was.
So again,
He
like,
was.
I mean, if God is all forgiving, you might see his ass in heaven.
Yeah. You
It's like
know,
shit.
fun fact, I hear, and I don't know if this is true, but it's so maybe it's not a fact, but I heard that he was actually baptized on the same day that Gacy was put to death.
Oh,
I That's what I hear. So
that's
it's just
interesting.
kind of an interesting little thing.
Mm,
He did get into religion, which is not uncommon for these guys to just like delve into religion. He never lost his desire to act out like that. He just couldn't perform it, obviously.
mhm.
Obviously, they were enraged at
Sure. I mean, I'm
the,
pretty sure if you asked him if he probably would do this again, he'd probably, yeah, if I had the opportunity.
oh, absolutely. Like,
Maybe
what?
he's like, I maybe just drug these guys. No, I drug them
He
again.
admitted, he admitted that he absolutely would do it again if he were out in
Yeah.
the there's no, this is such a strong compulsion, Dustin, that
Oh
these
yeah.
people have. I mean, there's nothing stopping them. That's why they need to just, I don't know, be eradicated. I don't know what do you do with these people?
Uh, yeah. Put them all in one spot. I have no idea. It's crazy.
Yeah.
No, there's another guy too. I go back to the mob. It was the Iceman killer. You know that guy?
Iceman killer. Which one's that? That's a mob thing?
Yes. He's a mob hitman, and he's going out for all the people that he was told to kill. But he get creative, or like he had like requests from like the people who hire him. Like he would like kidnap the person and then put him uh in a cave and then have a video camera on them while the rats would eat him alive. Shit like that. And then he would like talk about like him and his coworker mutilating bodies while eating pizza together. Like
Uh,
this is all for the mob though. Like these
yeah.
cold, and this guy had a family and kids too, where just everything was under wraps. It was cool.
Crazy how you
Yeah.
just double life it like
Of a life.
that.
Yeah, just like Gacy. But again, it caught up to him, obviously, too.
It always catches up. And how are you married to someone?
Right.
You don't notice that anything's wrong. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's gnarly. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Um,
I oh Ramirez. I don't know if you know much about Ramirez. I
yeah.
don't know a ton. Okay, the Night Stalker. He raped and killed a lot of women.
Yes. Yes.
His attitude in interviews reminds me a lot of a little bit of Ted Bundy and a little bit of John Wayne Gacy. He's very arrogant. He's very high in arrogance, which
He
Ted Bundy
smirks a lot too.
smirks a lot, like an evil smirk.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Wayne Gacy, he wasn't very smirky. He was just kind of like kiss my assy.
Hmm.
But I feel like Ted Bundy was very smirky too. I didn't like the way Ted Bundy smirked. And everyone talked about how he was so charming, and he was. His charm is what got him through life and got him through so many murders, is his charm.
You know, it's another thing too about Ted Bundy was the cops asked him for his advice to catch the Green River Killer. You know this?
God, what?
Yeah. So like, cause uh, I don't. I think the only advice that um um Ted gave to the cops really is like, well, you know, those bodies that you found, leave a few of them there and just watch them because he'll come back.
Yeah.
He's like, because I
Well,
would.
All right.
Because he said
Yes.
I would.
Right. Ask a serial killer for advice on stuff like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You'll get
No.
some real deal stuff.
Yeah. So again, that's how they got him. They just waited
Yeah.
and found him. Just come back to, oh, I'm gonna jerk off on the skeleton.
Oh my God. Yeah, what's up with these people like the BTK? He was one of those guys, the
Yes. Yeah.
bind,
BTK.
torture, kill. He was one of
Yes.
those guys who
And he
liked
was a
to
cop. That motherfucker's a cop.
oh my God. He was like a well-educated guy. Family, two kids.
Yeah.
Um, oh my God. He was sick. He's a scary, scary man. Of course, he killed a lot of animals and he would dress up in some of his victims' clothing and bind himself and jerk it.
Yeah. Didn't he like wear like nylons and shit?
Yes. Yes. He wore nylons and then he would like
And
photograph
bras and shit.
himself. Yes. Photograph himself in like his victims' clothing. But he was part of like the Lutheran church, had a family. He had this whole double life thing going on. Um, I think that's the guy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the guy that also installed security cameras. So
Yeah,
people
he
were
did
like
that. Yeah.
terrified of him, and he was in their homes installing security.
That's
What the
insane.
fuck? Ah,
Yeah. Well, I can tell you um little little story with my family, with my mom's side, her dad, on her dad's side, I should say, my grandpa, Grandpa Jim. So this is back in the 90s where one of my mom's cousins happened to have this. Well, she had an ex-husband that was a cop, and she was murdered. But it was on Forensic Files, the TV show, because the case broke because the forensic science like got this guy basically. Um, yeah, he murdered his ex-wife by strangling her to death while she was like half naked and was on the couch, and then he's like started putting toilet paper or tissue underneath the cushions and get it going. And he took vodka that was laying around because she was an alcoholic too. And she poured a bunch of alcohol on her and then lit her on fire and hoping that the house would catch on fire. But I guess the room that she got the fire was in didn't have enough oxygen. So like just her body was burnt on the couch basically. And my her mother was the one that found her body. And yeah, that was probably the most dramatic shit I can imagine.
oh,
Right? Finding your daughter like burnt to a crisp.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy claims his innocence this whole time, but forensic science says differently when they found DNA and how it was the fire was started by a certain way, not just by
Yeah.
accidentally light. He's trying to make it look like a cigarette got on her clothes and whipped her up in
Right.
fire, and she had alcohol near her, and that's what happened. Yeah.
Does seem like the guy, I would watch that episode. It does seem like the guy, the ex-husband, still is maintaining his innocence and his son
Yes.
is so convinced of his
Yes.
innocence. But, they have ways of knowing stuff these days and
They
it
do.
doesn't fly.
Doesn't
I mean,
fly.
a long time ago, you could just set anyone on fire after strangling them and you're good.
Yeah. If it was in the
But
20s, yeah.
it's much more complicated these days. They can look in people's lungs and be like, they didn't inhale
Yes. Yes.
smoke. They
There's,
didn't inhale. So that's suspicious.
yeah. Like they found only a certain amount of soot or something in their throat
Right,
and their
exactly.
lungs. And like it should have been a lot more. Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
it's amazing what they could do with forensics and what they could do with autopsies, like how
Yeah.
exactly someone died. And like, obviously she was strangled to death.
Right.
Um,
You
yeah, it
think
was
you're safe,
really,
from a murder 30 years ago. You're not because they can look back now and they have all this technology now and they can look back at old cases and open them up again
yes,
and
that's true.
solve them now.
Yeah. And then, there was some unfortunate news recently that I heard from an ex-girlfriend that her mother was shot by her husband, that she just told that she wanted to get a divorce to. And he, out of anger, went and grabbed a pistol and shot her while she was sleeping
Jesus.
6 times. And she miraculously survived, missed every major organ on her. Bullets scraped her face. Bullets went through her chest, stomach, and through her arms when she threw her arms up. Uh, Awful. And she's the most nicest woman I ever met.
Oh,
And like, it's just disturbing that this guy has been to my house and ate dinner with my family enough
oh
to
my
do
God.
that. This again, what the fuck? Who are these fucking people?
Oh,
Yeah. So
are you messed up from that psychologically? Because you've like talked to this guy and interacted with
I
this.
never liked the guy.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So, yeah, he's an asshole. He's just came off like a hick. This, yeah, it's not cool. I didn't like the guy, and my girlfriend at the time did not like him. So yeah, my heart goes out to her and her family, and hope that she's still on a speedy recovery. Um, yeah,
You
yeah,
you know, you'll meet these people, and just like you said, Dustin, you had a bad feeling about the guy. You
yeah.
do meet these people with sociopathic tendencies, and not everyone becomes a psychopath like a lot of these very famous killers, but you do get a sense of who's off, like that your coworker who
And
ended up killing
yes,
the guy.
another recent one. I had a coworker that committed murder and shot his friend. That his friend, I guess they got into an argument over how ugly his daughter looked. And yeah, he went and I guess planned it all out and then went to this dude's house and shot him in the stomach. And then I guess the cops found him on camera too. He's not slick at all. And then he
Yeah,
had the gun still. Like, he's stupid
Jesus.
fuck.
It's so dumb.
So they'll steal your life away. Nice. Over a comment that you could totally walk away from. Like, what?
Right, right. And it's impulsive. Impulsivity is very high with people with sociopathic tendencies. So they'll just snap.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
A little thing like that. That's a
Well, the
lot.
fact that he like premeditated too. So
Oh yeah. Well, that's true.
like again, like the anger stayed with that dude
Yeah.
enough where like I'm gonna fucking shoot this
No,
dude. Right?
like anger man, you need to have some form of anger management,
Well,
dude.
I think we dodged a bullet at work. Talk about a
Dude,
dude having a bad day at work and coming in there
for
spraying everybody else.
real. How
Holy
closely did you work with him again?
in the kitchen. Yeah. So
Oh
I would see that
no.
goofy motherfucker. He wear these weird like elbow pad looking things. It was I called him Pinocchio. Looking weird as fuck. Jeff Crompton. I could say his name because he's a piece of shit.
Oh
And he's
my
rotting in
God.
jail.
Oh, I feel
Fuck
bad
you,
since you've
Jeff.
had a lot of like run-ins with psychopaths.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Wisconsin's full of them. I feel like
Yeah, what is going on in
I'm
Wisconsin
just
for
dodging
me?
bullets over here.
But you also somehow have the coolest people. So you have
We
like
do, really do.
psychopaths and like super cool people. It's
Super
like
cool people
balance.
and aliens and Bigfoot and Ghost. Ghost love to kick it here.
Oh my God,
We're
yo.
making Ghost here in Wisconsin.
I I can't wait to visit. Seriously, I gotta visit.
Yeah.
It'll be
Oh, we're
so
gonna have a
much fun.
blast. Oh, we're gonna have a
Yeah.
blast. Yeah, because there's so much we can do. Like,
I
I could
know.
show you the cool haunted spots, and then we
Yes.
go to Aztalan and look at the land pyramids nearby.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's really
can't
cool.
wait.
Yeah, it's cool. We'll set up something in the summer or
Yes,
something.
please, summertime.
Summertime.
I'm not going to Wisconsin. I'm only going to Florida in the winter. I'm sorry.
Understandable. Something I can afford to go every 2 weeks.
Yeah, in the
Jesus.
winter, yeah, to make
Yeah,
it through.
I'm going again. 5
No,
days.
I'm done for now. For
Are
now,
you?
I'm done.
I doubt
I'm
it.
back with you full time for
All right.
podcast.
Well, I'd hope so. I was missing you there.
I was missing you. Oh.
Tears. Well, that was awesome. I
Yeah,
think that
I
was
mean,
a
I could
good.
go on and on, but that was
I think
badass, and I
that was
had fun.
badass. We did a whole hour there of talking.
Yeah.
No, I think we might have to have a part two. Again, I think we're
You
gonna have
have to have a part two,
this
please.
little segment of crazy murderers because
Yes,
I think we just touched
please.
up on just the tips of
We
ones, and
only, that's only the tips.
yeah, and I think we should do a little bit more searching for other ones that we haven't heard of, maybe
Absolutely.
in other countries. I'm pretty sure they have some
Yes.
circulars in
I'm
other
down
countries.
for that. I'm
Yeah,
down for that. Yeah.
cool.
That was fun.
All right. Hey, why don't you stick with me for 2 more minutes?
All right.